They left me with nothing but silence and scars. They thought I would stay down because they took everything. But they forgot one thing. I wasn't built to beg. I watched them celebrate my fall like it was permanent. But they didn't know that pain is my training ground. They took my peace, so I built fire in its place. They took my hope, so I fed on cold reality. They took my name, so I wrote a new one in blood. They took my confidence, so I fought every day to earn it back. They took my love, so I buried my heart and learned to move without it. They thought I'd crumble, but I crafted armor from the rubble. Every lie they told became a brick in my comeback. Every door they slammed pushed me to build my own. They took my voice, so I spoke through action. They took my power, so I took my time. And when I returned, I didn't knock. I kicked the whole wall down. I didn't rise gracefully. I rose with fury. I didn't heal softly. I healed like a storm. Because you don't get strong by being loved. You get strong by surviving the ones who didn't. They took my identity, so I forged one that can't be broken. They took my dignity, so I found pride in silence. They took my trust, so I learned to trust only movement. They took my safety, so I became the threat. They took my joy, so I made discipline my drug. They took everything I thought I needed, but all they did was strip me down to the core. And at the core, I found fire. At the core, I found a version of me that doesn't flinch. At the core, I found a warrior that doesn't want revenge. He wants results. He wants legacy. He wants the crown. They thought I'd never earn. Every time I bled, I took a step closer. Every time I was betrayed, I saw clearer. Every time they mocked me, I got meaner. They took my light, so I learned to see in the dark. They took my direction, so I made war my compass. They took my belonging, so I became the place I needed. They took my childhood. They took my trust. They took my calm. They took it all. But they forgot that some people get stronger when they lose. Some people get louder in silence. Some people don't die when you bury them, they multiply. I wasn't meant to be saved. I was meant to be reborn. And that rebirth came from fire, not mercy. I didn't ask for healing. I chose war. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted power. They took everything, but they only made room for greatness. They took my time. So I learned to move in silence and strike with precision. They took my energy. So I stopped giving it freely and started feeding it into my grind. They took my naivety. So I became cold with intention and sharp with focus. They took my support. So I carried my own weight until my bones learned to thrive under pressure. They took my dreams. So I rebuilt them. Brick by brick, with ruthless discipline. They thought I'd be bitter, but I'm just focused. They thought I'd be broken, but I'm just rewired. They thought I'd come crawling, but I came swinging. You can't steal from a man who's already lost it all. You can't threaten a mind that's been through hell and liked the fire. You can't shame a soul that's worn its scars as medals. They wanted me to be quiet, so I spoke through achievement. They wanted me to be small, so I outgrew every box they put me in. They wanted me angry, so I chose purpose over pettiness. Every time they took something, I built something. They took my sleep, so I mastered my nights. They took my strength, so I trained till weakness became a memory. They took my safety, so I turned myself into a fortress. No locks, no keys, just firewalls of experience. They laughed when I fell, so I smiled when I rose, not out of spite, out of completion. Because when you take from a real one, you trigger his evolution. I didn't cry for help. I crafted my comeback in silence. I didn't seek pity. I welcomed isolation and made it my training camp. They took everything, and all it did was strip away. The weakness I thought was strength. All it did was show me what I'm capable of with nothing. When you lose everything, you gain clarity. You see who you are without applause. You see what you can endure without comfort. You see how far you'll go without permission. And I went far, far beyond what they imagined, far beyond what I once believed. Because limits are lies. You learn from the weak, and I unlearned every one of them in silence. You don't get respected by crying. You get respected by conquering. You don't earn power by pleading. You earn it by bleeding. They took everything, and that was the gift. Because now I owe them nothing. No explanation, no access, no mercy. They took my faith in people. so I put that faith in discipline. They took my comfort, so I made pain my partner. They took my calm, so I learned to move through chaos without losing my fire. They took my identity, so I forged a new one, unshakable, unapologetic, unbreakable. You only know who you are when there's nothing left but you. No praise, no support, no cushion to fall on, just grit, teeth, and a will that refuses to die. I didn't rise because I was inspired. I rose because I was cornered. I didn't fight because I wanted to win. I fought because I refused to lose. They took my innocence, so I made wisdom my weapon. They took my laughter, so I made progress my joy. They took my rest, so I turned every hour into a war cry. People talk about strength like it's a gift. It's not. Strength is what's left after you've lost everything else. Strength is what you discover when the world leaves you to rot. Strength is what grows in the cracks of your broken dreams. They didn't give it to me, I built it. They didn't train me. Life did, and life doesn't whisper. It screams, it breaks you, it starves you, it strips you bare until you either run or rise. And I rose, not because I had to, because I chose to, because I refused to be a casualty of their comfort. They took my voice, so I let my results do the talking. They took my joy, so I found a darker fuel. They took my freedom, so I created options with my grind. You can't cage a mind that's seen rock bottom and smiled. You can't kill a soul that's already died and came back with a mission. I'm not motivated by hate. I'm motivated by memory, by the image of me broken, by the sound of their laughter, by the taste of defeat I swore I'd never swallow again. They took everything, but in doing so, they gave me something priceless, purpose. Now I move different. Now I speak with silence. Now I act with precision. I don't need closure. I am the ending. I don't need revenge. I am the consequence. They took everything. I took it back with interest. They took my options. So I created paths where there were none. They took my voice. So I let my actions echo louder than their noise. They took my fire, thinking I'd freeze. But they forgot. I'm the one who starts the blaze. Every scar they left became a lesson. Every betrayal became a map. Every fall was a rehearsal for my return. I didn't get strong by chance. I got strong by force, by standing up every time I was dropped, by holding on when my hands were bleeding, by fighting when I had nothing left but rage. They took my pride, so I built a legacy instead. They took my patience, so I learned to strike without warning. They took my peace, so I trained in war. You don't understand power until you've been powerless, until you've watched people you love turn into strangers, until you've been ignored, dismissed, and forgotten. Then one day you're not the victim. You're the storm they thought would never come. You show up quiet. You show up focused. You show up ruthless. They took everything because they thought you had nothing to fight with. But you had one thing they couldn't touch: will. You had that fire that doesn't beg, that mind that doesn't break, that soul that doesn't quit. They gave me every reason to quit. And that's why I didn't. Because the world doesn't reward weakness. It eats it. And I refused to be eaten. They took my humanity, so I chose discipline over emotion. They took my softness, so I learned to be sharp. They took my time, so I mastered patience with violence. You can't stop a man who lost it all and still woke up hungry. You can't control a beast that built his own cage and then broke it. They called me too much, then they called me too quiet. Now they don't call me at all. They watch, they wonder, they whisper, but I don't speak their language anymore. I speak results. I speak execution. I speak victory in a dialect they can't understand because they took everything, and I didn't just take it back. I turned it into a throne, and I sat down with blood on my hands, but a smile on my face. They took my humility, so I walked with quiet confidence that needs no applause. They took my reputation, so I let my results rebuild it with fire. They took my excuses, so I was left alone with accountability, and that's where I found my power, alone, bleeding, ignored. I found out what I am when no one's watching, and I liked what I saw, not because it was pretty, but because it was real, unfiltered, unpolished, unapologetic. They took my belief in fairness, so I stopped expecting anything but war. They took my fairy tales, so I became the monster that guards his own castle. They took my forgiveness, so I gave myself permission to forget them entirely. They took my direction, so I drew maps with my pain. I traced every failure until it led me to the man I am. They don't know what it feels like to start from zero with a heart full of fire. They don't know what it feels like to be counted out and come back swinging. They don't know what it's like to be quietly grinding while the world watches you die. But I know, and I'll never forget. Because that memory is my weapon. That silence is my anthem. That pain is my fuel. They took everything. And I took the ashes. I turned them into blueprints. Blueprints for discipline, for mastery, for dominance. They thought they were ending me. They were just editing the story, and the final version has me at the top. Not because I'm lucky, but because I'm relentless. Not because I'm gifted, but because I refuse to die in pieces. They took my peace. Now I move like chaos. They took my softness. Now I strike like steel. They took my everything, and I took it back. One silent step at a time. No noise, no tears, no warnings. Just a man on fire with nothing left to prove. They took my soul, and I rebuilt it from stone. I don't need closure. I am the chapter that ends with victory. I don't need validation. I am the standard. They took everything, and I let them. Because I knew one day I'd take it all back. With strength, with fire, with silence. And I did.